Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to create this YouTube subscribe animation using Adobe After Effects. Okay, let's go ahead and open up Adobe After Effects. So we've got a blank project here. We're going to click on new composition and we'll give the composition a name. Let's just call this YouTube going to call it YouTube subscribe animation. Now we'll set it to 1920 by 1080, so it's HD resolution. We'll leave it at square pixels, 30 frames per second is fine, and we want to set the duration. The duration of this animation will be 6 seconds long. The background doesn't really matter what color you choose. That's just for visual purposes, you could say. So I think we'll stick with, we want a contrasting color because our YouTube animation is probably going to use a lot of red colors. So maybe if we have a blue background, everything will show, but we can change this color afterwards anyway. So we'll click OK and we'll click OK here. So here we can see our blank canvas. Okay, the first thing we want to do is draw out the shape of the button. So we'll go to the shape tool here and we'll select rounded rectangle tool. And let's just draw out the shape of what we think a button would be. Something around this sort of size here would be good. So this is the shape of our button. It doesn't have a fill at the moment, so let's click on the fill option and let's set it to red. We want a nice red button. And the stroke outline, we're going to leave it as 0 point, right? So we don't want any stroke here, so we can click here and set the value to 0 here. Okay, so we've got a new shape layer here, and let's just click on that shape layer, hit the enter key and call this shape button. It's important that you label your layers so that when we look at them later we have to understand exactly what these layers are. If we click on the drop down here and we go to the rectangle, we can see in the transform here we can see the position and the size and so forth. So what we want to do is make sure this button is centered out on the screen. So let's click on the selection tool, click on the button, and then we can go to the alignment tool here. Alignment, let's just align it to the composition exactly in the center of the screen, and we might adjust that afterwards. Okay, let's go ahead and click on the canvas here to deselect everything. Just click in a blank space and we want to click on the text tool. This is the text tool here, and we'll click on the canvas and I'm going to hit the caps lock key and type in subscribe. So I've got the text subscribe here, and I'll click on the move tool or press the letter V, the selection tool here, and we can now move this text, right? But you're going to see something's going to happen. As I move it, the screen will go black and it will tell you that you've got caps lock still enabled. So you have to turn off caps lock in order to refresh the screen so that you can see what you're moving. That's very important. So make sure you turn caps lock off after you've typed in your text. And what we want to do is select a different font. I'm not really too fond of this particular font. It's just normal Arial. So we'll look down here. Let's see. Maybe we'll use Impact, right? It's quite a bold font. So something like this, it really stands out. So if we left click off the canvas, we can see the text written here. So let's go ahead and use the left mouse button to select all of the content, and we'll go back to the alignment and we want to align it to the composition. So we select composition, align center and center. That will make sure the text and the button are exactly in the center of the screen. Okay, let's go ahead and left click down here to deselect everything, and we'll click on the subscribe button and we're going to press Control and D. Control D will duplicate that text. So we have two subscribe text. Let's drag this one just above slightly, just like this, and we'll align it in the center of the composition, center here. In fact, let's go ahead and click on the text tool and then click on this subscribe text and type in the letter D at the end to make it subscribed. So it's going to change the text once we run the sequence on the animation. We'll click back on the selection tool and we'll go back to align here and center it, and then let's go ahead and left click to deselect everything on the canvas. Okay, the next thing I want to do is inside of After Effects I want to create a bell shape icon. So if I open up the web browser, you've got this like YouTube bell shape. So we could do this in Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. I want to try and create this particular element directly in After Effects. So to do this, we want to create a separate composition because we're going to animate that bell. We're going to do a little bit of animation on that bell as well. So what we'll do is go down here on this little icon here, we're going to click, and that will create a new composition, and let's call that bell icon. And pretty much we can leave all the settings as they are. We can leave it at 6-second duration. Everything should be fine in here from the previous settings. Let's go ahead and click OK, and you'll see there's a new composition here. So we've got the original one here, the YouTube subscribe animation, and now we've got a new composition where we're going to create new content, but we're going to separate that out so that we can animate and sequence everything afterwards. Okay, so to create the bell shape icon, we're going to use a combination of shapes. So let's click on the shape tool here and select the ellipse tool. We'll hold down the shift key. We're just going to draw out a little circle like this, something around this size here. If we go to the transform tool, and then we look at the, let's have a look at the ellipse here. We've got the stroke, the path. We can see the size in there, 120 by 120, right here in the size. So let's click on the selection tool and left click outside to deselect the circle. That's quite important. We can minimize some of this stuff. We don't need it all open. Really, the size 120 on the width, that's kind of what we want to know, that sort of number, right? And we're going to go back to the shape tool and select the rectangle. Now it's important that you left click outside to deselect, because we're going to draw this second shape as a separate layer. So let's go ahead, and around the midpoint of this circle, we want to hold down, in fact we don't need, we can hold down the shift key and draw out a little box here like this. So when we draw out this box, it's called shape 2. So really we should label these probably, right? This one's called shape layer 1. We know it's the circle at the top, so let's call this bell top. It's going to be very difficult to remember all of these afterwards. So bell top circle, and then let's call this one, so you click on the name here and then hit the enter key, and we'll call this one bell top square. And we know that the circle was 120 wide, so if we go to the rectangle, go to the transform here, in fact we'll go to, let's see, this is scale. Let's see how that is looking here right now. It looks like it's offline, so let's select them and align them in the center. And in fact they're actually perfectly sized. We don't have to actually adjust the width of this square. It's perfect, you can see. So what we'll do is just minimize these layers. You can actually press the letter U, and the letter U down here will collapse all of the layers, right? Now we want to draw a circle shape, a bigger circle. So let's click here and go back to the ellipse tool and make sure everything is deselected. So just click outside, click down here so everything's deselected. Hold down the shift key, and we're going to draw out a circle roughly around this sort of size, something like around here. So let's go ahead and center align that circle. We'll click on the move tool again, or the selection tool, click on the circle, and we're just going to move it up to around the midpoint of the circle above, something around this sort of position, maybe down a little bit. Let's left click outside, and this is going to be the top of the bell shape, right? Now we want to draw the square element of that bell. So let's minimize this, and let's call this, in fact you can hit enter here, press Ctrl C to copy, hit enter here, press Ctrl V to paste, and we'll call this bell, let's call it middle circle. And now we're going to draw the square element of the bell. So let's click here, click on the rectangle tool, and let's make sure, in fact we'll click down here to deselect everything. We'll go to the edge of this bell, or the circle, like around the midpoint, and we just want to left click and draw out a square. You don't have to hold down the shift key because we want to just adjust this slightly. We don't have to be an exact square. Something around this size here should be good. We'll click outside and then left click here. Again, it's slightly offline, so let's select everything, go to alignment and center align it. Now it's nicely aligned. Okay, I think it'd be wise that we label this box. This box here is just called shape layer. So let's just double click here. Let's hit the enter key to copy this text. We'll click here on the shape layer, hit enter, paste it, and we'll call this bell, let's call it bell bottom square. So we've got the square at the bottom, and now we want to create like these little triangles that come off the side here. So to do that, we'll go to the shape tool and we'll select polygon tool, and we'll hold down the shift key and we'll draw out this polygon shape. We have to be a bit careful here because now we're drawing this shape on that same layer. So let's press Ctrl Z to undo that, and then we'll press the letter V or go to the selection tool here, and then we'll left click outside on the canvas. Let's just minimize everything in here. Make sure we left click outside, then go to the shape tool, polygon tool, hold down the shift key, and we'll draw out this polygon shape. So now you can see it's on its own layer, and we'll just we'll label this in a moment. Let's go to the options here, polystyle 1 here, and inside of the path we'll drop it down, and in the points we want to set it to 3 points. Now it's a triangle, and we want to move this. So let's click on the selection tool. Let's drag this so that it sits at the bottom here. We want it to be roughly around this sort of position. It's a bit too big, so let's click on the top corner here and shrink it down. Really, we want it to be roughly about this sort of size. I think something like, let's see, somewhere around here should be pretty good. And we're just going to drag it to, if you hold down the shift key, it will snap to the edge of this square box, right? So we want to snap it to the edge, but we also want it to be aligned right at the bottom of this box. So let's click on the triangle, hold down the shift key and click on the square box, then go to the alignment tool here, and then inside alignment select to set it to selection, and then click on the align to bottom, and that will line that triangle right to the bottom there. So this triangle we need to label. So let's just minimize this and we'll call this one, let's just hit the enter key. Let's call it triangle. This will be triangle left. Yeah, it's the left side, and let's click on that triangle left, press Ctrl and D to duplicate it, then hit the enter key and rename this one triangle right, and we can just drag this to the right hand side now, and it will snap to the edge here. Then all we need to do is click on the triangle, hold down the shift key, click on the box, make sure selection is selected here and align to bottom. And if we left click outside, we've got this nice shape at the bottom, and we're getting a good bell shape now. You can see the bell shape being formed. Okay, we just want to draw a little rectangle at the bottom here. So let's go to the shape tool, click on rectangle, make sure everything is deselected, right? So click down here, deselect everything, or click on the side here. Go to the shape tool, select rectangle tool, and we just want to draw a thin rectangle down here at the bottom. So we'll hold down, in fact we won't hold down the shift key, we'll just draw out this rectangle shape like this, and then we'll use the move tool or the selection tool. Let's left click and see how that is. So it's slightly offline. Let's click on it and go to the alignment and align center, and it's pretty good. I think it's just a little bit too big, so let's click on it. Let's go to the rectangle here. Let's go to the rectangle path, and inside the size we need to untick this constraint option here so that we can adjust the width. So it's right now it's set to 536. Let's try 534. That will make it slightly smaller. We'll click the center align again, and now it's pretty good. I think maybe it can be a little bit bigger. I think maybe 353. Let's center that out. That's a little bit too wide, so we just got to compromise here a little bit. Let's just set it to 534. I think that will be fine, and we'll center it. Make sure you're saving your work as you do this. So let's click save. I think that's pretty good. I think it's a little bit too tall, so let's set the height to around 60. Let's make it a bit more narrow. I think that is still a little bit actually that's not too bad. You can see there's a gap in between now, so let's just click here and use the up arrow to move it up so that it's sitting nicely at the bottom of this bell. Let's click on it. Let's move to the shape, the layers here, press the letter U, that collapses all of the layers, and we just want to hit the enter key and call this bell bottom. Let's just call it bell bottom. That should be fine, and let's just make sure we save our work. Okay, so we've got a good bell shape here now, but we want to just add a few more elements to it. So we're going to click on the shape tool and we're going to select the ellipse tool here. Make sure you left click outside on the canvas, click down here to deselect everything, and inside of the fill option here, you see where it says fill here, the actual word. Let's click on that word, and then we'll select transparency here, right? We want no fill, so select this last option right here, and then click OK. And then inside of the stroke, let's just give it a bit of a stroke, let's say around 20, something like this. We'll make it larger, and let's make sure it's white. And then we're just going to left click and draw out a circle. Hold down the shift key as well, just to constrain this circle shape. Let's make it roughly around this size, and we can adjust it afterwards. Let's center align it, and then we want to increase the thickness of this edge. We want it to be quite thick, say around 60. I think around 60. I'm going to set it to around 70. I think let's set it to around 64. Let's do 64. 64 should be good. So let's click on the move tool, and I just want to move this up slightly, just slightly, to around, let's see, really we want this to be around this position here. What I'm trying to do is get the curve of this edge here, the same sort of curve here. Can you see it's almost like a nice circle now shape? So this edge here, I want this edge, this inner edge, to be sort of matching around there. So this position is pretty good, right close to the top of the bell here. And we want to create like a mask to mask of some of this content of this circle. So to do that, what we'll do is let's just minimize this. Let's call this, let's give it a good name. We'll hit enter, call it bell circle sides. That's what I'm going to call it, bell circle sides. Let's go to file, save, and we'll left click outside to deselect everything. Let's go back to the shape tool and select rectangle tool here. And around the midpoint of this large circle that we just created, around the midpoint, we just want to draw, in fact, let's press Ctrl Z to undo that. Let's go to the stroke here. In fact, let's just set the stroke to 0 value, and then in the fill option, let's set it to red. And yeah, we want to have a red fill, basically, something that we can see quite clearly. So we're just going to draw a rectangle shape to cut across this this circle around the midpoint. We'll just center align it. We can just center align it, and then we want to go back to the shape tool and make sure this same layer is still selected, right? So we're not deselecting it, we're going to keep that layer selected. Go back to the shape tool and select polygon tool, and we're going to draw out quite a large polygon, something around this size here. And what we'll do is, let's just go to file, save for the moment. Okay, we want to move this polygon shape. So to do that, what we do is click on the selection tool, and we'll click on this object. Now if we try and move it, it's going to move both the objects because they're in the same shape layer. They're in this same shape layer here, you see. So what we'll do is, let's just minimize some of this. What we do is go to the canvas, click on the shape layer and hold down the control key, and then click on the polygon. Now that's selected by itself, and you can move that individually, right? You have to hold down the control key. So let's open up this polystar here, and inside of the polystar path, so inside the path, the points, we want to set it to 3. So it's a triangle basically. Now we just want to rotate this triangle so that it's facing downwards. So the triangle is still already selected, you can see that. So let's click on the rotation tool here, and we'll just left click and drag to rotate it downwards, and hold down the control key, hold down the shift key, just so that the triangle is pointing in this downwards direction like this. Let's go back to the move tool, and we want to drag this triangle so that it sits in the center point. We actually want to make it a little bit bigger, so let's click on this side here, and let's just grow out the size to about this size. We want it to be quite large, roughly around this sort of size. So really what we're doing is cutting out this shape here. You can see these side shapes. So what we'll do is click on this tool here and just center align it. Make sure it's nicely centered. Let's just click outside, click here on the whole layer and center align it so it's perfectly centered. And now we're going to use that as a mask to mask off these shapes on the side. So let's just minimize this, and let's just call this, let's hit enter, let's call it a matte. Really in Photoshop you'll call it a mask. In Adobe After Effects we call it a matte. So it's M-A-T-T-E, right? Matte. Let's call it matte side. Let's call it matte circle sides. So we've got this matte here. Let's click on the bell circle sides here, and inside of the matte option here. So you need to make sure these two options are enabled down here in the bottom corner. Make sure both of these are enabled. These two here, and inside of the bell sides, it's set to none at the moment. I'm going to set it to inverted matte. Now you can see that shape, right? and these are going to we're going to animate these elements on the side here during our animation sequencing. Okay, so to finish off this bell shape, we just need to create a little semicircle down here at the bottom. Let's go ahead and click on bell top circle, this bottom layer here. Press Ctrl and D to duplicate it. So we've got bell top circle number 2. Let's drag that all the way to the top here, and we'll hit the enter key and we'll call this bell bottom circle. It's going to be right at the bottom, so let's just drag it all the way down to roughly around here, just below the in fact, let's just drag it a bit further down. Let's just so we can see it clearly, and then we'll just center it here on the canvas. Let's just center it on the canvas here, and we want to just cut this circle in half basically, so we use a mat to do that. So let's left click outside, so we deselect everything, go back to the shape tool and select rectangle tool. It's already filled with red, so this is good for us, and all we're going to do is draw a rectangle shape that covers half of the circle, something around sort of like around here should be good, and we'll just center align that as well. And let's just minimize this layer, and we want to name this correctly, so let's click on this layer, hit the enter key, press Ctrl C to copy, and then we'll hit the enter key here and press Ctrl V to paste, and we'll just change the word bell to matte, so it'll be matte bottom circle. Let's click on this bell bottom, and in the drop down for the matte we want to select alpha inverted here. So now we've got this half semicircle. Let's hold down the shift key and select both of these two layers. We want to select both of them, and then we can use the arrow key to just on our keyboard just use the arrow key to move it up a little bit so that it sits nicely in position. We'll click on the selection tool, let's click on the canvas, and our bell shape is pretty much done. Let's just make sure that is center aligned, looks centered to me, so that looks pretty good. That's our bell shape for when we do our animation sequence. Now remember, we've created that in a separate composition. Let's just go to File, Save, and let's go back to our original YouTube animation composition. So now we can take this bell icon and just drag and drop it into the animation sequence here, or our canvas, and we want to resize that bell. It's way too large, so let's click on this little handle in the top corner, and we hold down the shift key, and we're going to reduce the size of it. So really we want it to be roughly the size, let's just see, I reckon that's going to be pretty good. That size there is going to be pretty good. You want to make sure that this square box or this button shape covers the belt. It could be slightly larger, I guess. Let's just click, we'll drag it out. And if you don't like the shape that much, you can always drag it and make it a bit wider or more narrow. But I'm going to hold down the shift key and just drag it out. I think this shape is pretty good. Somewhere around this size should be perfect. And we're going to hide that bell shape behind the button, and when we do our animation sequence we'll switch out the text and animate, and we'll do some good stuff here. Okay, if I minimize the After Effects on my desktop, I've got this folder, and I've basically created this basic hand shape using Adobe Photoshop. So I took an actual picture of my hand in this sort of position pointing, and then I just did a rough trace around it in Photoshop and just added a stroke around it, and I separated the elements. It was quite important to separate these two parts here, these components, and then I just saved it as a PNG file. So this particular image, I'll put a link to that in the YouTube description, so you can download this particular image and follow me in the tutorial. So what we'll do is just go ahead and open up Adobe Illustrator, and we just drag and drop this hand shape into here so that we can work with it. So this is the hand shape, and we will actually want to create a separate composition for this hand shape. So what we do is create a new composition, and we'll call this hand, and everything will stay pretty much the same. We'll click OK. So we've got the PNG file. Let's drag and drop that into the canvas here, and let's just align it and set it up in the center point. Okay, we have this hand object selected already, so make sure it's selected. Let's go to Layer and then go to Auto Trace here. So what Adobe After Effects will do is trace around this image and turn it into a vector based image. So we select Auto Trace and make sure that you've selected Apply to New Layer here, and then go ahead and click OK. So we've got two layers now. We've got the original PNG file and we've got this trace the layer. Let's click on the original PNG file and let's just hit the delete key. We don't need that anymore. Let's click on this auto trace layer and let's just rename this. Let's hit the enter key and let's just call it hand. Let's make it nice and easy. we'll call it hand. And what we want to do is add a stroke around his hand. There's a couple of ways to do this. If we open up the drop down here and go to mask, we can see there's two masks. There's one for the top part, because these objects were separated in the original PNG file. There was like a top section, there was a break between them, so it created two separate masks for the top and the bottom. This is quite kind of a wise decision to do it this way. What we're going to do is just add a stroke around it. So let's minimize this and click on the hand so everything is selected. Let's go to the effects presets. Let's type in stroke. And inside of here we've got the stroke, and we're just going to drag and drop that onto the hand, and we're going to say all masks, tick all masks, so it masks adds the stroke to both of them. In the color option here we'll say to black, and in the size of the brush we're going to set that to around 7 or 8 seems to be okay. Let's left click, and now we can see that we've got this black outline. You can see it's quite thick here, right? We don't really want that, so let's hold down the Alt key. Let's click on this object, hold down the Alt key, and zoom in on the bottom section here, and we just want to separate these. There's a few different ways to do this, but the easy way to do it is just to select the hand, press Ctrl and D to duplicate it. Let's hit the enter key, call it hand top, and then move down to this layer here, hit the enter key and call it hand bottom, and we'll open up the drop downs here, and we'll open up the masks options here. So we've got the masks we can see. So for the top one we want to delete the bottom mask, so let's select it and hit the delete key. And then for the bottom hand here we want to delete the top mask, so let's select that and delete that. Now the masks are separated and we can move them separately. So let's go ahead and click on the second mask, which is this bottom section here, and use the arrow key just to move it up slightly so that that stroke looks like it's uniform, right? About here should be good. So now it looks like it's nice and uniform. If we zoom out, we can see the stroke looks consistent around the hand object, and we're going to animate this hand object. So let's go back. We've got the bell. Let's go to File, Save. So we've got the bell icon that we generated. We've got the hand object now, and we're going to go back to our main animation. Let's click on Project here, and we want to click on the hand composition, this one, and drag and drop it into the canvas. And this size is a little bit big. Let's just move it up a little bit, and we'll click on the handle, drag it down. I reckon around this sort of size. You can imagine we're going to animate this hand. I reckon around this sort of size here is going to be pretty good. So now we've got all of our elements. Now what I do normally in After Effects is create all of the elements, all of the objects that I want to create first. Create them first, then do the animations, and then do the sequencing at the end to make sure everything is sequenced out nicely. So this is the best way I think of working with After Effects. Of course there's other ways to do this, but if you've got all of your objects, then you can think about how you're going to animate them once you have them on the canvas. So we have everything. Now we can proceed with some animation sequences. Okay, so before we go ahead and start animating, we want to go to Edit, Preferences, and then General here, and we want to make sure that we turn on Default Spatial Interpolation to Linear, this option. So make sure that is turned on. That will just make sure that when we do our keyframing, the sequencing between those keyframes is a flat trajectory, right? A flat animation, and we can add our easy in and easy out afterwards. It's better to do it this way, I believe, what I think. So let's click OK, and now we can start the actual animation sequence. Okay, so when I'm working in Adobe After Effects, and when I'm animating elements on the screen, I like to hide objects that I'm not working with. So right now we just want to focus on, the button and the subscribe text. So let's go ahead and hide the hand, the bell, and the text subscribe. We want to hide all of those elements and just focus on the subscribe and the button. And what we want to do is we want to create a map for this subscribe text. If I drag this subscribe text down here, you can still see it on the screen, right? We don't want that. We only ever want that subscribe text to be shown where the button is displayed. So we're going to create a map for it. The easiest way to do that is to just duplicate the button. So we'll click on the button and press Ctrl D to duplicate. And we're just going to drag this button to above the subscribe text. And what we'll do is just click here and hit enter. And we'll type in mat subscribe text. Now you can see we can't see the text anymore, so we'll click on subscribe here, and inside of the mat here we need to set it to alpha map. Now when we click on this subscribe text and we move it, wherever we move it, if we move it off screen here, we don't see it on the animation anymore, right? Anywhere around here, we'll only ever see it when it moves in towards this this matte object here. Hopefully that makes sense. We just basically, it's a bit like a Photoshop layer mask, think of it that way. Now we actually want to control the position of the matte and the subscribe text as we're animating. So what we'll do is, in fact, what we'll do is just control the matte first. So what we're going to do is click on the map and click on this little pin tool, and we'll click here and drag it to the button. So what, in effect, what's happening now is when we click on this button, if we move the button, the map will move with it. That's what we're going to do. The subscribe text can stay there at the moment, and we're going to animate that in a moment. So what we want to do now is click on the button and press the letter P. The letter P will bring up the options for the position of this object, and we're going to click on the stopwatch. That adds a keyframe, and we're going to go to frame 20, and we're going to click this little button here. This will add another keyframe. So now we've got two keyframes. Let's move back to the first frame. We'll click on this button and we'll start to drag it to the left hand side, but hold down the shift key so that it drags out on the same on a line basically. Now if we hit the space bar, we'll see the button slide in like this, and we're going to improve that animation. We're going to use some motion blurs and stuff in a moment, but right now what we want to do is just ease these keyframes. So let's select both keyframes with the mouse. Let's right click on one of the keyframes, go to frame assist and select easy ease here. Then we can go to the graph editor. When we click on the graph editor, we can see the shape of this easy ease, right? And we want to select both the keyframes down here. We can see both these keyframes and click on the little yellow handle and drag it this way to the center point all the way across. Now this will speed up and then slow down the button towards the end. So when we go back again, let's click on the graph editor here and click play. It will speed up and slow down towards the end. You can see that, right? It will speed up and then slow down. This just makes everything look a little bit more smooth, a little bit more professional. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is animate this subscribe text. So let's click on it. This subscribe text, let's go ahead. Let's left click here. Let's minimize this and click on the subscribe text. And in fact, we should really probably leave this open. We don't really know. We're actually on frame 20. We know that the last keyframe was on frame 20. Sometimes I like to leave the position open here so I can see the keyframes underneath. I'll click on subscribe and hit the letter P as well, so I see the position for the subscribe text. I'm going to click here and add a keyframe, and I'm going to move to frame, let's say frame here on the timeline. You can see the timeline here. So I'm moving to 1 second and 5 frames right here, 1 second 5 frames, and I'll click the add keyframe here as well. So we've got two keyframes here. Now the first keyframe, we want to move the position of this text. So let's grab the text and drag it out to the right hand side so that it's outside of the button. Now if we go back and click the play, we'll see the text slide in like this. And again, we want to just improve the keyframing here. So let's select both of these keyframes and we can right click on any one. Let's click on this one, go to keyframe assist and easy ease. Let's go back to the graph editor, select both of these keyframes and drag it to the side here. This little yellow handle, drag it to the side here. And we'll go back to our editor here. So if we click the space bar to play, we'll see the button slide in, and then our text will also be easy ease. It just makes things nice and smooth. We're going to add motion blur afterwards to make it look even better. Okay, so we've done the basic button animation sequence for the beginning part. Now we want to work on the hand. So let's click down here and press the letter U. U will close everything down, and now we can show our hand icon, right? And we want to move across the timeline. We know that at 1.5 frames, at 1 second and 5, that's where the full animation of this button is done, and we've got the hand icon showing now. So let's click on the hand here and press the letter letter P. Letter P will determine where it's going to be positioned, and on this one we want to set a keyframe. Let's set a keyframe here, and we're going to move over to 2 seconds. 2 seconds here, and we'll click the keyframe option here to add another keyframe. Let's move back to the first keyframe. Let's click on it, and then the hand icon, we're going to drag it downwards, and let's just move it. So we need to really zoom out a little bit, so hold down the Alt key and use the mouse wheel to zoom out a little bit, and just hold down the shift key and keep dragging down. Let's just drag this more down, hold down the shift key, and then we want to drag it to the, maybe to the left a little bit. So let's just drag it to the left and hold down the shift key to lock it, right? Something around, I want to drag it to around here. It's kind of aligned in the position here. I don't want it to come straight up, I want it to come in at an angle. So when we see that, we'll see it coming in at an angle like this. Maybe that's a bit too much. Let's drag it to the left a little bit. Maybe about here. Something like this. I think that would be good. So we can see this. Okay, let's click here and set it to fit. That will make it fit the canvas size here. Let's select these two keyframes. Let's right click, go to keyframe assist, easy ease, and go to the graph editor. Select both these keyframes and then just drag the handle to the side here, and this will smooth out that animation. It will speed up and slow down towards when it gets to this point. Now we're going to use the puppet tool to actually animate the hand, and we might, let's think about this. I was wondering if we rotate this slightly. Let's go to file save at the moment. Let's click save. Okay, I think it would be better if we rotate this hand slightly. So we'll click on the rotation tool and let's just rotate it around so that these knuckles, the knuckles on the hand, like around the top here, are kind of flat towards the bottom of this button. So we're kind of flat here and flat here. So it's going to move in at an angle rather than being like a flat hand straight. I think that looks a bit better, that sort of position of the hand. Okay, let's click on the selection tool. I just want to move the finger so that the finger is in kind of the center of the button. Let's just move it across slightly to around this position, because that's where I want it to be clicked on, roughly around here. You can adjust this, you can have it on the end over here if you want, or over here if you want to click it. I think in the center point of the button is a good place, so we can just sort of eyeball that roughly around. I think about here is a good position for it to end on that keyframe. Let's just go back and click the spacebar to play, and we can kind of see what's going on here. So I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, let's move to this keyframe here, 1 minute and 20 frames, right? 1 second and 20 frames here, right on this keyframe here. We'll click on the hand and we'll hold down the Alt key and zoom right in on the hand. We're going to click on the puppet tool here, the position tool, this pin here, and we're going to pin on the top of the finger. We're going to pin around the knuckle at the bottom of the hand here. I'm just left clicking to do this, and we're going to pin on the right side here and then pin on the thumb here. Now we've got pin number 1, 2, 3, this was number 4 and this was number 5. I only care about pin number 1 and pin number 5. So we're going to go to the mesh object here, and inside the deform we'll see pin number 5 and pin number 1. Let's expand pin number 1, and you'll see that there's already a keyframe added here for that particular fingertip. So let's click on the move tool and we're going to move across to let's see, we're at frame 120, frame 1 second and 20, so we're going to move to 2 seconds here, 2 seconds. We're just going to drag the top of this finger and kind of have it like it's almost like in a click position, right, somewhere like here. And then we're going to go to puppet pin 5, and it's already got a keyframe as well. So here's the keyframe. So on this position here, we're going to drag the thumb sort of this direction, like around here, not too much around here. So we've got this sort of movement now, like a click movement, can you see? So we want to unclick afterwards. So we want to click and then have this hand move back to its same position. So what we'll do is select these two keyframes, the first ones, press Ctrl and C to copy, and we're going to move another 10 frames across to 210, and then press Ctrl V to paste. So now we've got this hand click movement. That's what we want. So it's looking good. So let's go back to here and select fit, and what we'll do is select these keyframes. Let's in fact play it. So I don't think we need to easy ease that really, to be fair. So let's just see. I think that's fine. I think it's a little bit slow. So let's just see that again. I think that click is a little bit slow. So to speed it up, all we'll do, let's select these keyframes and let's just drag them a few frames in. Let's just bring it closer here. Let's drag these ones and bring those two keyframes in closer, try and keep that gap between them similar, and let's just see how that looks now. So I think that click there is pretty good. It's quite fast. It's not too fast, but I think that's pretty good. I think that works. So now we're left with the belt icon, right? We want to animate this belt icon. Okay, let's click. Let's go to the layer stack here. Let's click on the hand and press the letter U. Press it twice, and that will collapse everything. And if we turn on the belt icon, we can see that it's positioned here at the moment, right? So let's think about this a little bit. Really, what we want to do, probably the wise thing to do is, let's see, we want to switch this text out, right? So when it's after we click subscribe, we want to switch it out so that it shows subscribed. So it says subscribe now. When after the click, we want it to change the text to change to subscribed. So to do that, what we'll do is let's leave the bell for the moment. Let's go to the subscribe text. It sits above at the moment, and what we will do, let's just see. In theory, we should move this subscribe text below this mat here, right? Let's move it below here for the moment. Let's just see. Probably actually we won't do that. Let's move it up above here. And what we want to do is really just hide this text and have this text appear. So to do that, what we will do, let's see. Right, let's work on the subscribe text first. So let's just press the letter P for position, and there's a couple of options here really the way to do this. Let's see on this keyframe, let's go to the hand and see where we finished off our position, our keyframes. Let's press the letter U. We'll expand it and we can see on frame 2 seconds that's where everything is finished, right? So we can just write down on a bit of paper the number 2 for 2 seconds just to remind ourselves. And we want to take the subscribe text and hide it at this position. So the easy way to do that really is just to drag the layer from the side here to here, this position here. You can see it's hidden now, right? So this is really where that subscribe text will get hidden. So it gets clicked, it gets hidden, and now we want to show this text. So let's click on this other subscribe text. Where is it? This one here. And we'll go to the alignment. Let's center align this one to the canvas, or center align it here. Now it's saying subscribed, and we want to do the opposite now. So what we want to do is drag from this side to this position here. So now it will just switch between them on the click. So we'll click and then switch to subscribed like this. That's pretty straightforward. Now we want to animate this belt icon, so that's what we want to work on next. Okay, so for the belt icon, let's turn that on. It's positioned right here, and we want that to kind of slide out from behind the button. Now to do that, really what we need to do is create a mat for it. We already have one for the text, subscribe text below. So let's just click on this subscribe text mat, press Ctrl D to duplicate it, and we'll drag it above the bell icon, this bell, and then let's just name it something sensible. So let's hit enter. We'll call it mat bell, and then in the bell icon itself, we'll click here and select, let's see, I think it's inverted, right? We want to select inverted. So where we want it to show when it's outside. So if we were to drag the bell, it will now start to appear, right? So let's press Ctrl Z to move it back so it's behind the button. We need to be placed behind the button, and we'll click on the bell icon. On this keyframe here, let's click the letter, press the letter P to add the position. Let's add a keyframe here, and we'll go 10 frames forward, and we'll click here to add another keyframe. So let's take the bell icon and just use the, we can just use the arrow keys or use the shift, hold down the shift key and use the arrow key to move the bell. Let's just zoom out, you move the bell to the side here. So now we can see the bell getting appeared here like this. Now we need to remember keyframe 2.10. So normally I have a little bit of paper on my side, so it'll be keyframe 2 seconds and 10 frames. So we want to do a little bit of animation on this keyframe. potentially. I'm going to need to think about it a little bit, right? So what we want to do is move the hand towards this, and it's going to click. And when it clicks, these little sort of shapes around the side will appear. So maybe we should do the hand animation first, and then we can work out the position of the click afterwards. So let's go ahead and press the letter U to minimize this. Press it twice. Let's just click here and minimize everything. And let's press Ctrl S to save. Let's go back to our hand object. Let's press the letter P for the position. We can see the two keyframes here. We want a keyframe here, right? So let's see what's happening. So the bell will come out on 2 and 10 seconds. So on 2 and 10 seconds, when that's finished, we want to add a keyframe. So click the keyframe here. Don't click the stopwatch, click the keyframe option here. And we'll move forward 10 frames to 220. And we're going to take the hand icon and just drag it. So let's hold down the shift key. Let's drag it and then hold down the shift key and drag it so that it's over the bell like this. And when it gets to the bell, we want it to click again. So the smart thing we can do is click on the hand, press the letter U, and the letter U will bring up all of our keyframes for the puppet, right? And all we're going to do is select all of these keyframes here. Select all of them, press Ctrl C to copy, press Ctrl V to paste. And now we'll see that the hand will move over. It should move over, it's not moving. Let's see what happened here. Did I do something wrong? Okay, what I did wrong, let's just press Ctrl Z. And let's do this a bit more carefully. So let's left click outside. We want to deselect all of our keyframes. Make sure all of the keyframes are deselected, yeah? Because when we get to this position here, we only want to take the puppet elements. I was copying the position here as well on this keyframe. We don't want that. So let's make sure we only select the puppet elements here. These ones here, press Ctrl C and then Ctrl V. Now we should see that click on this one as well. See the click here. Now we know that this is the click. So on this keyframe here, which is 3 seconds, I'm just going to write down on a bit of paper 3 seconds. So let's minimize all this. Press the letter U and press Ctrl S to save, and let's go to the bell icon here. So on 3 seconds, we want to do something with this, with these little circles, right? Let's click on them. We can see it's called bell sides. Let's press the letter U here. Sorry, the letter. Let's see. We want to scale this, right? Press the letter S for scale, and let's see. Let's just try and scale it now manually. So let's just click on this here and let's drag it in. So it's going to expand out like this. Let's press Ctrl Z to reposition it again. We've got the scale here. Let's add a keyframe and let's go forward 10 frames and add another keyframe here. Let's go back to the 3 seconds here and we'll click on this little handle here, drag inwards and hold down the shift key so that it's smaller, so it gets masked by this bell shape. Now we can see it's going to expand like this, and we should just easy ease them. So let's select them, right click, go to keyframe assist, easy ease, go to the graph editor, select these two keyframes and drag this handle to this side. So let's go back now. Let's press Ctrl S to save and go back to our YouTube animation, and in theory this will now pop out after the click. You see, that's what we want. So we're almost done now. We can just think about how do we close down this sequence. That's really what we want to think about next. Let's give it a quick play and see what it looks like. And we can see there's one problem here already. This is showing, right? This bell. There's two ways to fix that. Either we can create a let's see, what do? We've got a mat here. So that mat, let's see if we can go here. No, we can't do it that way because the mat is moving, right? So the smart thing to do here to make life easy is just to drag this content across to, let's see around here. I think will be right. Let's see. Yep. So now in the beginning it's just a blank slate, right? And now we can see this bell icon appear here, but now the click position is wrong. So on this frame here, which will be 3 seconds, we've added an additional 2 seconds to it, right? So if we go back to our hand icon, let's see our keyframes. Let's just move back a little bit. Let's see position. not the hand, the bell, sorry, the bell icon. Let's come out of the graph editor. We can see the bell icon is here on 3 seconds. Let's just double check this. Let's see, it might be okay actually. I think it's, let's see, click and then open. Maybe around here we should start to show those little elements coming out of the bell. That's on 225. So let's go back to the bell icon. Let's just select these two keyframes and drag them back to this position. If we go here, after the click, then like, as the finger moves back again, then these are expanding. I think that looks a little bit better. So we're in a good position now. Let's see. I think that looks pretty cool. Okay, let's move to around 3 seconds. And with the hand here, let's press the letter P for position, and we want to move it off the screen, right? So let's go ahead and click on the keyframe here, add a keyframe, and we're going to move maybe around, let's see, 310, around 315. We're just going to click on this hand icon and drag it to the left and drag it off of the screen. We just want that to move off the screen. Let's select these two keyframes, these two here. Let's right click, go to, let's right click on the keyframe, go to frame, assist and easy ease. Let's click here. We'll select these two keyframes and we'll easy ease them like this. And we need to decide what we do with the rest of the objects. So I think this bell icon should follow the hand afterwards. So let's move to around this position here. Let's go to the bell icon. Let's click it, press the letter P for its position. Let's add a keyframe here. Let's move forward, where are we? 315, so let's move to 330, which will be 4 seconds, right? 4 seconds here. In fact, we'll do that. Yeah, 4 seconds should be fine. Let's see what it looks like. Let's click play here. So that moves pretty fast, so that's okay. Let's go to 4 seconds. Let's take the bell icon. Let's make sure we add a keyframe. And we'll click the bell icon and drag that off of the screen here. And we'll select these two. Let's make sure we select the keyframes. Right click, keyframe assist, easy ease. Go to the graph editor. Select both keyframes and drag this way here. And we might even easy ease this as well. I think it will be wise. Let's try and do that. In fact, we'll leave that. That's just the movement behind this position here, right? We could easy ease it. I don't think it's really necessary. We'll try that and see what it looks like. Let's just go back and see what that looks like. Yeah, that's fine. Now we just need to sort out this text, what we're going to do. So I think the text will just slide off, and then the button maybe will shrink it and then move it off the screen, or we can do various things really. So let's click here and press the letter U twice. That will close everything down. Now we're looking at the button. Let's click on this button and let's press the letter P to expand. We've got its position. Let's add a keyframe here on 4 seconds. We've got a keyframe here, and really it would be wise for us to deal with the text first, right? Because if we move the button, well, in theory, if we move this button, the text, yeah, we want to deal with the text first. So let's click, let's undo that keyframe. Let's just right click, or let's select it and delete it. We don't need that. Hit the delete key. Let's go to the subscribed text. Here it is, subscribed text. Let's press the letter P for its position, and we'll add a keyframe. Let's just see if we drag it off, we can still see it, right? Because there's no real, there's not a matte on this text here. So really, we should add a matte to it so that we can hide it when we drag it off. Otherwise, it's going to show all the way. So we don't want that. So let's click on this matte here, or we can click on the bell one. Press Control D to duplicate it, and when you drag it below this subscribed one, or above the subscribed text here, let's just let's see, this is called matte subscribed text. So let's hit enter, copy it, click this one, hit enter, paste it, and change it to subscribed with a D at the end. We'll click this one and we'll set it to alpha matte, right? Let's see, 1 minute. I think we want to set it to alpha matte here, alpha matte. So if we click this subscribe text and drag it off, it's going to get hidden as it moves off the button, and that's what we want really, right? So now we can animate this. Let's click the subscribe and we want to add a keyframe here. We'll move forward 10 frames. Let's make it 15 actually, 15 frames, and we'll add another keyframe. We'll click that text and I think we'll drag it off to the left hand side. Let's drag it off to the left hand side. So let's see what that looks like. That should be okay. Let's select these keyframes, right click, keyframe assist, easy ease, go to the graph editor, select those two keyframes and drag it in this way, and then let's go back. Let's just move here and click the spacebar. We can see that slide out. Now we're finally left with a button. So the button itself, let's see, I think what we'll do is there's a few options here really. Let's try and do something a little interesting. Let's click down here and press the letter U twice to collapse everything. Press Ctrl S to save. Let's save our work. We're left with this button here, right? This button. So let's press S to scale. So we've got the scale of the object here, and we're going to add a keyframe. And what I want to do is just scale it in a little bit, right? So let's see. Let's move forward first a few keyframes. So we're going to move to, where are we? 415. Let's move to 425. So we want to scale it in slightly. So let's just scale it in slightly like this. So we can see it's going to scale in slightly like this. Let's easy ease this. Right click, keyframe assist, easy ease, graph editor, and we'll select these and we'll just drag this handle this way. And then I think this button will flow downwards, I think is a wise choice. So let's go forward. Where are we on? We're on frame 425. So let's do it at 505 here. So let's click on this button and let's add a keyframe and let's drag it downwards and let's see what that looks like here. So we should really let's see. So we made a mistake here, right? So let's undo that last step. Let's press Ctrl Z to undo it. Let's, because we're playing with the scale here, right? So let's just see what happened here. So the button shrinks down here, which is fine. Let's click this. We don't need this keyframe here, I don't think. Let's delete it. Select it and delete it. So we're looking at scale here, but really we want to be looking at P for position, right? So we're animating from here all the way down to here. We don't want that. So we want all of this to stay as it is. It's going to shrink down here on frame 425. It finishes, I believe, 425. So here we want to add a position keyframe. We was adding the scale keyframe. We don't want scale, we want position here. So we've got position open. Let's click add keyframe, and then let's move forward to 505, and we'll click this and drag down this way. So now that should work like this. Let's just select these keyframes, right click on them, right click, keyframe assist, easy ease, go to the graph editor and select these two keyframes and drag them across like this. And let's go back to the main view here, and let's see. I think we need to easy ease these the other way. Let's click here on the graph editor. Let's drag this out again. Let's drag it out. Let's drag it from this side. I think you should slow down and then speed up towards the bottom. I think it makes more sense. Let's see. Yeah, like that, right? Let's press Ctrl S to save. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of the keys, the frame, and let's press the space bar. And that will just allow us to see the animation sequence, which I think looks pretty good. not too bad. The last thing we want to do is add motion blur. So to add motion blur, you need to make sure this option is available, this one, and we just turn motion blur on for everything. Just turn it on for everything. Press Ctrl S to save, and then hit the space bar. Now we've got some nice motion blur in our animation sequence. It's just going to make everything look a lot smoother and a lot cleaner. So we've got this blue background. Now when we export this file, this blue background doesn't actually get exported. It will be a black frame, not blue. But if you actually want to color in the background, then we have to add another layer to create that. So let's export this first as it is, and then we'll create a second version with a colored background. Okay, so the wise thing for us to do is go to File, Save As, and this is the original file. This is the one that I've been working on. I'm going to save it as version 2. So we'll keep our original file as it is, and we'll make a version 2. Let's save it, and then go to Composition. Let's go to Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. That should launch another piece of software. This piece of software that will allow us to export the video. This is how I typically do this. So let's just see how we can get this working. Shouldn't take long to export, only a few seconds. Is a very small animation sequence. So when this loads up, normally your clip will load in here. While we're waiting for that, we want to go to H.264 and we want to export with no audio, right? Where's no audio? Without audio here. So we just need to add, this has been added to the queue. If we click here, we can make sure we're saving it to the correct folder. It's going to create a subfolder and put that animation sequence in there. So let's click save, and we just click the play button, and it's going to render that out for us. It should take a few seconds to render, so we'll wait for this to finish. Yeah, here we go. So let's just wait for that to render out. You can see it's a black frame behind, right? Although our After Effects showed blue. Blue was just the composition background that was just to help us visually see what's going on. So if we minimize this, in fact we can just close this for the moment. Let's minimize this. So what that just did was create this subfolder, and inside this subfolder you'll see the animation sequence. So let's just let that play a couple of times. Let's repeat it. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. Let's close this. Let's show you how to add a colored background. So the reason why I saved it as version 2 is now we can open up After Effects and save it as a version 3. I like to save things as versions when I'm changing stuff. If I want to come back and make a different change quite quickly, I can do that from previous versions. So we want to add a right click here, add a new solid, and we can choose the color from here. Let's say that we want to make it what would be a good color. Let's say we want to make it like a blue shade, right? Click OK, click OK. Now that will be a solid, and we just want to drag that to the bottom. We want it to be at the bottom, so we click play. Now we've got this blue background. So if we move back across the timeline, let's go to File, Save, and let's go to Composition, Add to the Media Encoder again, and we can export a blue version. And in fact, the last thing I'll show you is how to add a picture in the background as well. So let's try that as well. Let's go to Without Audio, and we'll click here. We have to just wait for it to add to the queue. It should take a few seconds. Let's wait for that. Here it is. So we'll click here, and it's going to create a separate directory for this one. So let's click Save, and let's click the play button. While this is exporting, let's minimize this and minimize this. Let's just minimize all of this. We'll open up the web browser, and we'll go to Unsplash, and we'll type in something like, let's say you've got a YouTube channel about, I don't know, let's say it's about London, for example. So we can take one of these pictures and put that into the background. Let's find something that looks quite interesting. Maybe this one here looks pretty cool. It's like a nice scene of London. Let's click download, and we want to open up this folder, right? This one here. We can open it up here, and let's just drag and drop that picture into this folder. So we've got the picture here. Let's minimize the browser. This encoding should be done by now. We're still working on it. Let it do that. And we'll go back to After Effects. And what we'll do is just drag and drop the picture here. So now we've got this image. We can drag and drop that into the layer stack here. This blue one, we can actually hide it. And now we've got the picture here. Let's click it. We can hold down the Alt key and zoom out. And we can grab the handle, drag it in, and hold down the Shift key to constraint, and then go back to here and do fit. And now we'll have our animation with a photograph background. So there's different versions that you can make quite quickly. Maybe you want to make a slightly different version every month to promote your channel. Let's go to File, Save. We'll save this as version 3, right? 1, 2, 3. This should be version 4. Save as. Let's save this as version 4. Save it. Let's see if our composition is done. Still working on that for some reason. Sometimes it hangs a little bit. I don't know why. It's connecting to this. So what we'll do, let's actually close this. We'll quit that. Let's just save this. We'll close down After Effects and let's just put it in a list view. So number 2 we exported already. Number 3 we're waiting for. So let's open up number 3 again. Sometimes you've got to open it. I'm not quite sure why it hangs sometimes. The media encoder, but we can just open it and export it one more time. Just want to see the end sequencing anyway. It would be nice to see them all. So we'll just cancel this composition, add media encoder. So we'll reload the media encoder. Hopefully it should work this time. Okay, it's added it quite a few times. So let's just click here, remove this one. Let's click this one. Right click on it and remove that one as well. We just have the one here. This should all be set up pretty good. Let's just make sure we set it with audio, and let's click where is it going to save it? It's going to save it into this v3 folder. It's fine. Let's click play. So this should export correctly now. Let's just see what happens. Here we go. Okay, that's done. So we've got a blue version. Let's go to File, Open Project, and we'll open up version 4. That was the one with our video image background. Let's add that to the media encoder queue, and it should in theory export it in version 4. Yep. So we can just click play and it will go through. So we should have all 3 of them now. Okay, cool. Let's close this. Let's close down After Effects. What I'll do quickly is let's see, version 2. Let's just copy this here. Copy that one here. Let's go to version 3. We'll copy that one here. And we've got version 4. Let's copy that here. It's saying it's going to replace it. Let's just rename this _4 and drag it here as well. So we should have all 3 of them lined up now, so that when we play them, let's just create a subfolder. Let's call it animation all. We can just drag these into here now and we can play them in sequence. Let's just have a little watch. We'll leave it on repeat. We can watch it a few times and see what it looks like. It's going to repeat the same one. You don't want that. Yeah, so overall I'm quite happy with the end result. I know it took quite a lot of time to explain how to do this, but sometimes it's better to explain in detail so that you can learn from it than just rush through it and you don't really learn much from it. I prefer to explain things in detail so that we can all learn from this. I like this last one actually. Quite like the photograph in the background. In theory, you could bring this into Adobe Premiere and you could put any picture in the background, right? So you didn't have to do this directly in After Effects. It would have been wiser to export this just as a black frame and maybe alpha channel, or just drag the After Effects composition into Adobe Premiere and import any still image in the background. That way you'll never have to re-edit this sequence again. That's how I would probably do it anyway. But overall, I'm quite happy with that. I'm sure there's ways that you can improve this as well. So I'll leave you to go and experiment with it. Hopefully you've learned a lot about After Effects by following this tutorial. We did quite a lot of things in here. I found it quite interesting to make this tutorial. So that's how you go about creating a YouTube subscribe animation intro for your YouTube channel using Adobe After Effects. If you've got any questions, feel free to comment in the description or in the comment section. Write a comment to me if you need any help, and I look forward to seeing you in the next DCP web tutorial.